So welcome back. I hope you all had a good lunch and met interesting people, maybe future collaborative partners. So now we've reached what it always used to be the highlight of these information days. Now we get to hear the testimonials of people who are in projects or have been in projects, and you will hear. They will give their stories, you will hear their experiences, lessons learned, and pitfalls to avoid. Since we have four speakers in this session, I will invite them all to give their speeches, and you make sure that you write down all the questions that you have, and then we have a long Q&A session after the presentations. So with those words, I would like to invite our first speaker, Professor Kristina von Gatten from the Department of Oncology and Pathology. Welcome. You have your slides here.
Yes. How do I get there? No. Det här är inte mitt. Okay, let's see if we can find the right slides. Escape. Yeah, well, no thanks. Okay, everyone. Good afternoon. I think it's appropriate to say you've had your lunches and I hope you are not sleepy. I am Kristina von Gatten and I'm working at Karolinska Biomics Center at the other side of the road, the hospital side. I work as a project manager of EuroCam platform. And today I am standing for Professor Rolf Levenson, who unfortunately could not make it today, but it's my pleasure to be here and share some of our experience that we've had with EU projects, and then in particular EuroCam platform. So, the EuroCam platform, so what are we? What is it? It is a network of excellence within the thematic priorities of health. And KI is coordinating, and coordinator is Ulrik Ringborg, and vice coordinator Professor Rolf Levenson. Time duration for the project is 5 years, but we intend to stay much longer and be around to become sustainable. The Commission supports us with 12 million euros, and this is provided for infrastructure, and we are 28 partners. So why the platform? Well, actually, the platform is an outcome of the results from another EU project, the EuroCam Plus project, which was within the FP6 program. And this was an assignment from the EC to analyze the European cancer research field. And the results from this EuroCam Plus project identified two main barriers in implementing innovation into cancer care. And that was fragmentation of the field and lack of sustainability. So they proposed the creation of a platform and the Commission listened. And this was the outcome then. They gave a call and EuroCam platform responded and we were fortunately granted the task to take on the mission. That's what we've done, and our aim therefore is to structure translation and cancer research between cancer research centers in Europe, but also provide a structure for innovative translational research in 3 strategic areas, that is prevention, early detection, and therapeutics. So we've been up and running for about a year. It started last year, 2011, but of course this story started much earlier than so. So the application process, which is of course something which goes in general for the EU projects, is a quite long project time or process time. So beware of this and take it into account. Start early, be equipped with patience, and be active in particular if you're going to be coordinators, which we strongly encourage to do. And you are not alone. There are excellent help structures, such as Grants Office here at the Karolinska, but also Vinnova and Sweden Bio for SMEs. There are also numerous other participants now that have been into different EU projects, so I'm sure that you also can get help from colleagues. The time frame here for the European platform, where Grants Office were very much involved already from the start, started in spring 2009 with a lot of emailing and discussions, and the call came out summer 2009. Writing business continued up until late autumn when the deadline was, and then probably people just caught their breath, and the evaluator started to read at the commission. And finally, an evaluation letter showed up, and in this there were a lot of positive comments which made the project move forward into the negotiation phase. And here I would like to say that it's very important to start off the consortium agreement, which I believe you've heard some about in the morning sessions, since it will take a lot of time. So, and also that during the negotiations, perhaps the work description that you will have outlined will not be totally accepted in its present form. You might need to change some things, or discussion, it can be molded and changed. So, other practical notes, what should I say? Yes, if you have a large consortia, as we had 28 partners, then not just will it take time, but it will take a lot of time. So if you have to collect signatures, remember to be very active and keep contacting them. Don't wait for your mails to be replied if you have mailed them 10 times. You really need to go and get them. Since you can collect 27 signatures and you lack the 28th, and for the consortium agreement, all of a sudden the last partner decides that, no, I think I would like to change something. Then you have to redo the whole process of collecting 28 signatures. And you know already that if someone decides to put away the paper for 1 week, you will be stalled and the whole project will stay where it is. So the consortium then, well, in general, the build-up of consortium should reflect all competence and expertise that you need to perform your project. Therefore, it is possible to single out the expertise and not have doubles of what you need to do, perhaps, because then probably the commission will wonder. You have to really be able to motivate why they're there. For us, the key word then is multidisciplinary. We need people from different professions which are strong in their field and what they're doing. And as you see in the upper panel here, the continuous flow of research, we wanted really to cover the whole spectra, starting with the basic research and going over all the way into implementation in care. What is not written here, but also very crucial, are dissemination and educational activities, which is also integrated, all to overcome this fragmentation, which was pointed out as a problem from the beginning. So the partners, which are all very great, there are 18 founders, and on this they added further 5 institutes and 5 organizations. During the negotiation process, this was something which was wished for from the commission side to get in patient organizations, but also there were requests to the consortia, and we also have requests now, and since we're a dynamic structure, and if we deem it appropriate, we will take in further partners. So I'd like also to say that you should note that we have no industrial partners, but we are, of course, communicating with both industry and SMEs. And yes, what are our partners? Well, there are comprehensive cancer centers. They cover both healthcare and education and research, but there are also cancer research centers which have basic and preclinical activities, as well as bioinformaticians represented for the EMBL, and organizations with the patient's best in front of their eyes, and these cover a lot of different professions. So we have the whole spectra, and the partners are from 11 different countries. The platform was addressing the problem then that there is an increasing cancer burden and a lack of strategy how to tackle it, and also to overcome this fragmentation, since there is a lot of good things happening, but how to get it together and get the innovative part out of it for the benefit of patients. So as said, this was one of the main aims, to improve therapy for patients, but also then meet the need to innovate and translate the knowledge of cancer research. And how we went to do this and for the action plan is actually then to create a good infrastructure and to apply the strategy of personalized cancer medicine. All this with a long-term commitment for sustainability. So it should not just be something which starts up and ends, and which is also something which happens to a lot of EU projects, that there's a stop. So please, when you do get into projects, bear in mind that you see a continuation also after it, which also very often happens since you make good connections and collaborations. Well, the evaluation report, just briefly, then you have 3 main points where you're evaluated, as you can see there, scientific and technological excellence, quality and efficiency, and potential impact. And we had some different comments on the first point, for example. Strength was that collaboration with existing leading cancer organizations in Europe was in place, while they thought that, well, maybe you should have included imaging. It's something that should be there, and which we actually are discussing right now. They also put forward advices then to include patient organization, which was done. We got full score on number 3, where the commission really said that, okay, we have gotten your message, or the evaluators did. So it is important that you have written good applications which are clear and convey the message, what you will do, and that you can do it, and how you will do it. So the good and perhaps less good things. These are, of course, not just for the Network of Excellence European platform, but also for other EU projects. And goes without saying, the possibility to develop projects and see a long-term perspective, since sometimes funding might be just for 1 year. And now, if you have a couple of years, you can look at it and plan a bit more. As said, with the multidisciplinary, then you get a broader vision on the problem. I mean, you can have expertise which attack the problem from other sides, and you might have new solutions to old problems, which is excellent, of course. And then, in particular for the platform, was sharing of resources and know-how. I mean, it's not everyone who can afford to buy very expensive equipment, which is for nowadays. But then we can share, and it's also to arrive at a critical mass, in particular for clinical settings when you need patients for clinical trials, or you need accessible tissue. This is really very good. Potential downsides, are there any? Well, as a coordinator, perhaps what you might suffer from is the retrieval of information. It is a tedious process to get hold of these signatures and the paperwork, but there are solutions to it. And another thing can also be that collaboration might end up in a one-person race, or perhaps parallel races from single persons, if you're not well integrated. So it's something to bear in mind and to work with when you have the application, because it's possible to provide. Then, what would I say also? The reporting, yes, you can also try to avoid future problems by having a sane and sound application, saying, not promising what you're not really will be able to do, and not in very short times. So you need to take the good with the bad, right? But we were also asked to talk about problems and challenges, and I also like to stress that there are solutions. So it is important to bear in mind, but it's also important to know that you can fix things. So time, of course, is a challenging factor. To meet deadlines can be interesting sometimes, but it's possible with a good planning and a lot of patience and good mood. But it's not possible, of course, to plan everything. And if you're coordinator, sometimes things will happen, which is not planned. And then it's important that you are active and that you're there and you participate, so you know what's happening. So it's not all of a sudden someone coming telling you that, no, we cannot fix this delivery for this and that time. Bureaucracy. Yes, of course, the rules and regulations needs to be followed, and it can be tricky to even get through the Commission's websites. But there is help to get. You can ask colleagues, you can get support from grants office. So don't fear. And there are those non-responders already spoken about. Yes, call them, but just don't sit and take several mails. It might sound silly to say, but it's very often that people just stall and say, oh, nothing happened. No, but did you pick up the phone? If that person isn't there, find a colleague, find someone which is working in neighborhood. And also, very important, usually you will know your collaborators more or less when you start the project. That is the wisest thing. But of course, there will be people who are involved who does not know all persons in there. So make sure that you establish good contexts. Take the opportunity. Don't go to the meeting and sit in your own corner. In particular, not if you're a project manager, for example. You need to be active and proactive. It is much more difficult to let slip a mail from someone that you know. I mean, then they feel that you should answer when Christina is mailing. I can assure you. And finally, should you bother? Yes, you should. Simple and first one is money. You need money to do research. Don't need to go into them anymore. But also that international collaboration is a necessity nowadays. Single groups will not make it, and not even maybe single centers. You need to be in a larger context. It's very important, in particular for Eurocam platform. We would not be able to structure anything without the actors which are in the field. This is absolutely necessary. And as spoken about before, the networks and the advantages are several, exchange of ideas and also the information and news flow. I mean, you might get tips before it's actually out there because someone knows something or someone is starting up a new consortia, and you get a visibility. If you were not that known before, maybe you will be even more known, and if you have done your job properly, they will not hesitate to contact you again. So this will, it generates good opportunities. As said, resources sharing, also very important. Now, take-home message. Work on your networks, yes. And realize that the application process takes time. If you coordinate, it will take even more time. And then make sure that you can deliver. Of course, you cannot always know that you will find the right things, but you can make a sane planning and you can make a risk assessment whether or not things will be possible. Do not promise the moon if you don't have the means to bring it down, right? And also, in particular for coordinators, I'd like to say that you should keep a good contact with the Commission and your scientific officer. They are not only there to scrutinize your project, but they are also there to help you, and they can and will. But of course, if you have questions, it's always wise to first turn locally and see if you can get the help, and then to them, because they have also a lot to do. So it's not something that you just pop away several mails to, because then you might work on your popularity numbers, which maybe is not something that you want to do. You should inform them what is happening, and you should also inform when it's not happening. So don't come and tell them like, well, by the way, we're not going to do this part of the work. Voilà. Then you will not gain any popularity numbers, as I said. Well, I think that is all that I have. This is the end of my talk, but I hope it is the beginning of your getting involved in EU projects. And I'd like to thank you for your attention and thank the organizers for inviting us to speak, but also to the Commission, which supports several of our projects.
Thank you very much. It was good to hear that you said some things that Johan and Miles and Judith mentioned this morning, so you know that we're not completely off, us theorists. So the next speaker today is not Kai-Ove. Unfortunately, there was a mix-up with the pictures. I'll just do it like this, so you will see the name of our next speaker blown up on the screen here. It's Anders Arné, professor at the Department of Physiology and Pharmacology here at KI. Please, Anders.
Giving me opportunity to talk a little here. I'm coordinating a much smaller network. We are working on a small and medium scale project focusing on urinary incontinence. Hello. Works. Okay. Urinary incontinence, and our project is called INCOMB, and I will not show any slides, and I think I adhere to many of the clever comments from the previous speaker, so I will rather speak more from my heart and some emotional aspects on writing and coordinating a EU project. So first of all, how do you find the project? And we followed very carefully the pre-announcements that came prior to the call. There are some kind of documents circulated with the early version of each call, and these I got mine from a group in Germany who wanted us to participate in another project. And when I read this text, I found a call that was really focusing on what we were doing as research. So I think it's very important to keep track of and finding your project, and so that you could shape the application to really address the call. And it's very nice to get an early warning, because when the call is out, the time is much shorter. And what I did, or we did, is that I made the point that I will not pick my friends, because I think all of us in the science world, we have a network of friends and colleagues, and the problem there is that most of them are in the same research area. So I actually looked at the call, and I found groups that I knew were very good in this research area, and also that they were complementary to each other. And I must say that I knew less than 50% of the people that were part of the application. And I think that actually turned out to be a strength, that you pick up complementary competencies. And I checked in the PubMed, and I picked the ones that were best. And nobody said no. So I called and said, "I've read your papers, very good. Would you like to be part of this EU project? And we're focusing, and you could bring in this and that competence." And that was actually a very good strategy, I think. The other thing is that I think it's good to pick up younger PIs, not too small groups, because you need a certain mass to be operating in this area. And the big groups, they have so many EU grants that they don't care. So you need somebody who's hungry for money and hungry for science, and those are the groups that really has contributed best to our project. And I think that the choice of the collaborators here is important. And by doing so, you could also focus more on the call. So you could actually address all the specific, if there's biobanking, you could find a biobanking. So I think that was, an interesting thing. Then to get the group together, we started in January for a call in September. So we had half a year about, and in April, since I didn't know the people, we invited them here to Stockholm, to KI, and we actually did it this way, that we paid for the hotel room and the food, and they all paid for the travel themselves. And then you picked out the ones that were interested in participating. And that meeting was kind of interesting. It was partly a catastrophe because nobody knew anything, but it got the group together and we got started. So I think it's nice to bring in various competencies and meet personally at an early stage. And then in May and June, we had sort of deadlines for early text, and then we spent most of the time in August, September to write the application. And I think that once you understand how the application should be written, what is a deliverable, what is an objective, then it's not so incredibly difficult. And I think actually all of those of us who are not English speaking, native English speaking, we have an advantage because we write a short and simple language that people in other European countries could read. Not everybody are English speaking. So I think a simple text is actually, it's an advantage for us who are Swinglish speaking that we could write simple with simple words and pictures. So I think that was good. And we were kind of lucky with our application. So we got actually the highest score. So we got all the money we wanted, which was for 10 groups, about 3 million euro. And the negotiations were not that difficult then, so we got our annex and whatever approved very early, and we started in December 2008. And now we are on the last phase of our project. So if I could comment on some sort of interesting aspects, that is, first of all, I think one should be aware of cultural differences, which is, we have groups from many parts of Europe, and maybe one could say that Germans are one kind and English people some kind, but it's actually true that there are cultural differences between the European countries. That is a strength, but it's also something you should think about. Some countries are slower in responding, some people get angry easier than others, and animal ethics and human ethics is different in some countries. So I think one should be aware of the cultural differences between countries, but also between industry and academia. We from academia, we think we could try everything and deliverables is not so important maybe, but people from industry are much more focused and often better organized. So I think there's also a way to find a communication between industry and academia. You have to give quite a lot and try to understand. Then there's also cultural difference in our field between clinics and basic science. And I think one should build into one's operating mode that clinicians have a different operating and working conditions than the basic scientists. So I think one should think a little about these things. We also spent quite a lot of time on ethical reports. That was actually very important in the application and actually also in the review process. So we had an ethical reviewer, etc. And we sent in our half-time report in time, and that was a struggle because we didn't really know what a deliverable was. I thought it was a scientific paper, but it turned out we could solve it by having sort of a text block for each deliverable and upload it to the homepage. And that was took some time to understand, but we got a very good half-time report and very positive comments, so we didn't have to change so very much. Then we had an audit, so suddenly there was a letter from the Commission that they will come and review us. So there was the auditors from Brussels and from the Commission, and actually the Swedish State Revision came as well. And that was kind of interesting, but they were very good, very, very good. I think Miles were very nervous, but we were confident. And I think a good way there is to look at this as a very positive event. They were actually quite helpful, and it actually also told me that we who work at KI have a fantastic machinery to our so that we could use for these grants. We had no major problems at all in the audit, and I think it actually strengthened our position later on. We've had companies involved, and I think for us who come from academia, it is a problem to find the right companies, and especially since we don't want to find more companies in Sweden, we want to find companies in other countries. And I think that's something where Vinnova could help us to bring Swedish SMEs into the European business, and that we could get contacts at the European level, because application with only Swedish academia and Swedish industry, I think, would be difficult. So we need to broaden our view who to recruit. And we also had problems with one small company that we had in our application who was bought up and suddenly became a big company. And we solved that by just stating that we will do those experiments in another way, and it actually was no major problem. So I think to get the right companies already at the application is more difficult than one believes, and I think that's something where Vinnova could help quite a lot. The other problems we had is to get people to spend the money. And it's very important to spend more than you have on the account, because you get an extra 15% or whatever after the grant report is finished. So we are currently pushing people quite a lot to spend all the money, so we don't stand there and with non-spent money. And I think that is actually happening very often in EU grants, that people don't request what they are entitled to. We've had, as also we heard before, extensive support from the grants office. This is heaven on earth to work in EU application, heaven in Europe for EU applications. That we have very good support from the grants office, and that involves both writing text, templates, but also during the negotiations, the financial support and the legal support. So that is nothing to worry about, I think. We've had, again, very good contact with our financial and our scientific officer in Brussels. They respond within less than a day for each email. They're very easy to communicate with. So I don't share the meaning that you very often hear that the bureaucracy is too much. But we've found very easy communication, straightforward, concrete, direct answers for all our questions so far. So why do this? And I think money is, of course, an issue. I think that all of us are looking for money more and more desperately. And I think one thing is that in Sweden, much of our research money come in a top-down procedure, that there are very focused grants that are not gained in open competition. And I think in that sense, for those of us who try at the European level, I think we could get a more open review of what we are applying for. For me, I think that strengthens something that we were good at the European level, even if you don't get a Linné grant or a Distinguished Professor Award. Of course, there are a lot of exchange ideas in between our groups, and that is something that has been difficult to stimulate. People are not that happy to travel between the laboratories, although you write it in the application. So I think there are important to build in some courses and incitements to change groups. We've run this project with a coordinator's office consisting of me and a colleague of mine, Cecilia Lövdahl, and she is a PhD, and that has a scientist, and that has been very, very good for us, because when she writes letter or we write letter and sign it with like a scientific colleague, we get very good responses to what we ask our colleagues to do, because we communicate at a more equal basis. And I think also what we heard before, if you try to be positive and call people, that is a very good way to get people to do what you want. But otherwise, there are some leadership skills required if you want to coordinate a project like this. Okay, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Anders. So now we heard two stories from an academia point of view, and now we have two stories from a company point of view. First up is Kai-Ove Chesburger from Neodynamics AB. So please, the floor is yours.
My name is Kai Wischesburger, and I'm a project manager for Neodynamics. Neodynamics is a small medical technology company, and so I can give more the perspective of a small company concerning the participation in an EU project. So just a brief background of the company. As I said, it's medical technology for cancer healthcare. It's a small company founded in 2004 by two professors from Karolinska Institutet. So it has very tight ties to academia. You have Professor Gerd Auer, who is a clinician, a pathologist, who kind of comes up with the clinical problems that are then solved by the other founder, Professor Hans Wicksell, who is a medical technology engineer. We're a small company with 3 people right now. Our financing is, of course, a lot of soft money from Vinnova, from the EU 7th Framework Program, from CAPI Research Foundation, Breast Cancer Research Organization, some private investors, and an institution, namely Karolinska Development. And our core focus, our core competence is tissue acquisition technology. So today, as you know, if a patient or if a clinician detects a lesion in a patient where he suspects it's a cancer, he has to take a sample of some kind. He has to take some tissue and get it analyzed. And what we do is we try to improve the process of tissue acquisition. We try to improve biopsies by making it more safe or more patient-friendly and more cost-effective. So how did we end up in an EU project? We are not the coordinators in this project, and I actually haven't been a part of the company when the project started, but I have a good picture how the story was, and it was Professor Gerd Auer's academic group that was actually approached by Professor Wiedengren at KTH, who was on the verge of setting up a consortium with a project which can broadly be titled Improving or Improved Cancer Diagnostics. And it was actually a project that was formed around or tailored around a top technology, a top scientist. It's Professor Stefan Hell in Germany who came up with STEP microscopy, which is a new way of performing light microscopy, where you can actually see the distribution of biomarkers inside a cell. You see where they are located, and the idea was to combine this with biomarker development, combine this with bioinformatics to actually get a new diagnostic tool, a new accurate diagnostic tool for cancer. And they were discussing this with Professor Gerd Auer, and actually what they came up with this was that actually the neodynamics technology would be a perfect fit to this project. It would make it even broader, not only improve the process when you have the sample and analyze it, but also improve the process how you gather the sample. So it was kind of a coincidence that actually the company's core competence fitted perfectly into this EU project, and then we became a part of the consortium. This was the humble goal of this FluoDiamond consortium, was to develop and validate a quantitative, minimally invasive diagnostic tool for early and conclusive detection, diagnosis and monitoring of disease and disease progression of breast and prostate cancer with negligible sampling related side effects. It was a huge goal, and we came in, as I told you, it's minimally invasive diagnostics and negligible sampling side effects, so improving the diagnostic procedure. It was a project that was set up for a time frame of 4 years, from January 2008 to May 2012, and had a budget of 4.2 million euros, of which Neodynamics was allocated 260,000 euros. The whole consortium had 12 partners, which I thought at the time was a huge consortium, but apparently this is not really the case. It's more on the lower end, with 9 academic institutions and 3 small and medium-sized companies. And as far as I know, it's as you see, it's only 3 companies. There's always a lack of small enterprises in these EU projects. So I think there's something that small companies could have an advantage of. What did this project actually give us? I think one of the main points was it gives, for a company working together with top institutions, with top scientists, it gives you a credibility, a scientific credibility, at least towards investors and towards shareholders. It shows that you're on cutting edge, considering your science, and could make it easier for you to raise money in the future. I think it increased or it strengthened our international network. Especially, I guess, if you're a company that hasn't these prior ties to academia, you get a foot in the door into the academic community. You work together all over Europe, see how the institutions work. Like we heard before, you make yourself a name. If you behave properly, maybe you can get a ride on the next EU project too. I think these EU projects, they're always very broad, and this, from a company perspective, it gives you a lot of knowledge of what is going on in adjacent areas. Maybe not in your core competence. For us, for example, not tissue acquisition, but what happens downstream of tissue acquisition. What happens concerning biomarker development, for example. And I think as a small company, this can actually give you an edge over your competitors to have this better picture of what is going on. And as a company, I wanted to have this last as the positive part. It's the money in, of course. A small research-related startup company. It's soft money, which takes you through the day in the end. We heard this before with the differences in culture, maybe between industry and academia. My personal perspective is that I think, in the end, these projects are very academic. They are of academic nature. A lot of research involved, and if you press this research into those project plans with deliverables and milestone payments. What happens usually, or as I see it, there are a lot of delays and you don't have control over it. You have partners in the consortium that don't deliver, and what happens is the payment gets delayed, for example. And as a small company, you have to really take into consideration and plan for that. And I guess it's the solution is to stay in close cooperation or in close communication with the project coordinator, who can flag for those kind of incidents or for those kind of events in good time, so that you can plan accordingly. It's administrative work, but actually I think it wasn't that much more work than is usually the case. It's for other soft money entities. I mean, you go to maybe 2-3 times a year to the collaboration meetings. Of course, you write your reports, but you have to calculate for it, and you have to do it, and it takes time. Also important, as a small company, it's a long time commitment. Those projects for us, 4 years, much can happen in the run of 4 years. Maybe your whole you shift your whole strategic focus from a certain project towards a different project because of some reasons, maybe market reasons, maybe because you have some new investors who think you should do otherwise. And it could happen that you end up with a company focus that is not at all in line with what you actually signed up for in the grant agreement from the beginning, which can cause problems. And this is also something that I guess can be avoided, or you just have to plan for it. I think that's half the deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kai-Ove. Very interesting. So now we invite the next speaker from a company here, Thorleif Lavold.
Yes.
From Biomotive.
Yep. Well, thank you for inviting me. So I will talk a little bit about our experience with not FP7, but the Eurostars. As you've heard, there are could be some problems for a small company to participate in big consortia, and I will tell you our approach. So Biomotive is a small technology and research intensive SME focusing on trying to commercialize several inventions that we have. So we have built now a prototype which we call HXIA instrument. And with this instrument we can actually manipulate and look at molecules, biomolecules, in a completely new way. And what is that? We can actually look at the structure, dynamics, and the molecular interactions of biomolecules in the liquid phase, and then detect what happens with high-resolution mass spectrometry. So we can look at, for instance, how molecules bind together, how many binding sites there are, where on the epitope they bind, where the ligand binds, for instance, where a peptide binds onto an antibody or a protein. This is the main sort of focus with this instrument, but we can also do other things, which actually are the highlighted items on this list here. Electrocapture is one technology that was developed under our first Eurostars project. A second ongoing Eurostars project is the Find the Needle in the Haystack project, where we can actually separate proteins online without any gels, no gels. Then we have two more inventions we want to try and commercialize, but we have IPR. It's how we can do screening of potential drug candidates in a new way. And also the last one is we call compound fishing, but we haven't been able to find any funding for this yet. So the first Eurostars project that we started some years back was to develop our technology, which is called electrocapture. So this is actually the instrument that was developed under the Eurostars project, and the heart of this project is this little electrocapture cell, which is a microfluidic device. In this device, we can actually immobilize charged molecules in the liquid phase based on the size of the molecule, the charge of the molecule, and the shape of the molecule. So it's a little bit like ion mobility, but we do it in the liquid phase. So it's completely free. All active sites of the molecule is free for molecular interactions. And we can do nice things like we can concentrate molecules. This is an example of a small molecule that we actually hold in the cell for like a half an hour, and suddenly we have an 80-fold magnification. We can also mix, for instance, a number of proteins, and we can do a voltage gradient in the cell, and then we can actually fractionate or separate proteins from each other. So with this approach, we actually got the idea to the next project, which we call Find the Needle in the Haystack. Because what do people want? Well, we want to find the needle in the haystack. We want to look for specific biomarkers or specific molecules in blood or in plasma or complex biological matrices. And well, this was just an example of 3 proteins. We use high-resolution mass spectrometer as our eyes, so we know for sure what we're looking at is the right antibody or protein or whatever it is, you know. So now we started a new Eurostars project, which, well, we're halfway down the road. It's a 2-year project where Professor Roman Zubrev here at Karolinska Institutet is one of the partners. Peter Repsdorf, one of the world's most famous protein scientists, is also a partner in Denmark. And then we have a little small SME in Denmark called MS Vision. That was our first partner in the first project also, so it's very nice to have friends abroad. So the idea of this concept then is we want to find only the yellow molecules. We know that the yellow molecule actually gets released from our cell just above 170 volt, 170.2 volt. So if we then dial in at 170 volt on the first cell, we will actually capture all molecules that has the property to be captured, and they will stay in the cell. All the others, the yellow ones, and all the rest will just flow through the first cell. Then in the next cell, we just set that slightly above at 171 volts. So we have a very, very narrow window where we can capture the molecule that we're interested in, and hopefully not much more. And then we can actually concentrate those molecules and really make sure that we see them. So we can really go for low abundant molecules this way. And this is what we're developing. A little sort of 2D gel in a small microfluidic device with no gel. And it seems to work. So we can actually separate proteins by the isoelectric point online without gels. And we can actually then select a specific fraction, a specific protein of interest, and concentrate that. And then we can select that fraction for further analysis by tandem mass spectrometry, for instance. So this could be really, really important for future research in many areas. So now I will talk a little bit about our experiences. We really like this Eurostars concept because we can actually decide what we want to do. We are the leaders. I coordinate the project. I select the partner. So we identify a project and we write the application around that. And the first project, we were only 2 partners, so not much coordination. Yeah, and somebody you know already is quite nice. If you have many partners, yeah, it's very difficult to coordinate and to really get to the goal you want. So yeah, make sure you create realistic work plans and that the partners, really are dedicated. And meet face to face on a regular basis. That's really important. So yeah, the first project, we were only 2 partners and it was in Denmark. So we traveled to Denmark a lot and they came up here to Stockholm a lot and it works very nicely. Now the second project is 4 partners, but still only 2 countries. So yeah, it's manageable. Okay, difficulties. Our main problem, and this has been addressed previously in talks, the consortium agreements. Even for a small project, Eurostars project like this, we have like 16-page consortium agreement. And we're not lawyers, and we don't want to send it and bring in lawyers. It costs a lot of money. And yeah, so we were pushed. We had to sign this. And then suddenly we find something which could be potentially a big breakthrough, and we want to file a patent. And then we have decided we share this equal between the partners. But 2 of the partners, they have not contributed. I mean, they were sitting down in Denmark. This was done in Sweden. No. How do you deal with this? You cannot. So this is something you really have to consider when you sort of sign the consortium agreement. What do you sign on to? Don't give away your ideas if you don't have to. Other things that also has been mentioned previously by others, yeah, delays, it will happen due to many things. The first project, actually our partner in Denmark was not funded because of some administrative bureaucracy from the EU side. So we had to wait for 3 months. Vinnova said, yes, you can have the money, but the EU office in Denmark said, now it's not ready yet, we have new people, and it was, yeah. So yeah, also we are building instruments, as you can see. So yeah, we can get parts that are faulty, it doesn't work, and yeah, that causes delays. So sometimes, you know, you are very optimistic, you write down the milestones, deliverables, and you have to meet them. So be a little bit, you know, careful. So my take-home message is that make sure that you select the right partner. Don't say yes to anything. If you say yes to a project, make sure that it's beneficial for your company, for your research. Allow enough time so you can actually do what you promised to do in the project. Do not give away IPR or inventions for free. Meet on Skype, but also meet in real meetings with your partners on a regular basis. It's very important. In this small Eurostars project, the administration is not very bureaucratic. For us, I think it's fine. It's not overwhelming, the reporting. So, yeah. It's manageable even for a small company. With that, I say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Thorleif. You will hear more about the Eurostars program for you that are an SME after we have a discussion now. So I invite all the speakers up. Suggest that we stand over here, so we don't have to stand in front of the tables.
Okay.
Stand here. Please, Anders. See if you can get mic'd up again. So everyone can hear you. I will start with, I see you're wearing a mic, okay, well, I'll start with a question for you, and then you think of your questions and raise your hands, and I will just get the people here to answer them. Have you seen any commercial effects during the program? It's ongoing right now. I said it's going to close in May. So have you seen any?
This is actually an example. We should have closed in May, but the consortium agreed to prolong the project, and it will be on for another half a year.
Okay, so there you have an
exactly,
example of the delays that can open up. So any questions from the audience? There we have one. Please, can we deliver a mic?
I had a question to the third speaker from the small company that comes out of academia. What is different from being in a small company, and what type of work might as well happen in academia? More provocative question, you representing an SME, a small mid-sized enterprise that comes out of academia.
Yes.
Is it not window dressing? Because most, if not all, the type of work that you do within that EU project could actually or can actually be done in academia. What's the separation between the academic part of the EU project that you're part of, and what actually is the company part that is really necessary to be done in a company, or in a company like Fashion?
Maybe where I can say it's R&D, it's research and development, and if you would want, you can say that the research that is done at the company fits perfectly into this EU project, and then we get results, we see how technology works, and implement that into our product development. So I think it's a good combination.
So is it the drift into engineering?
It's more the drift into product development, maybe, I would say, if this answers the question.
Any other question? No, please think carefully. No,
I actually have a question for you.
Please.
So your partners actually own part of your patents that came out from this process now?
Well, actually, we had already filed for the sort of electrocapture technology. And then when we are now developing the find the needle in the haystack, we sort of thought we were going to write a new.
Yeah.
And then we looked in the consortium agreement. Yeah, we had agreed there to share 25, 25, 25, 25 each, you know.
Okay.
But as it turned out, after talking to our patent lawyers, they said, actually, it's covered in your first patent, so and we owe this. So yeah,
You're lucky.
but we were a bit sort of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
That's what my mother always said. Don't sign anything if you don't know what it says. Well, I have a question for you, Christina, because all the other speakers told about how they set up their consortia. You had the largest consortia. How did you set that consortia up?
Yeah, we already had from the Eurocam Plus project, so there were already 18 centers in this one. So they were also on board in the Eurocam platform, and then they were further extended with 5 more centers and 5 more organizations, and some were proposed from the Commission and some which also came with requests to join in. So, I mean, these are large institutes, so and the people, they know each other. That's how it came together.
Okay, similar. We have a question in the back. We wait for the mic so all our viewers watch online can hear the question.
Hey,
Please.
my name is Terry Skian, and I come from the Hjälpmedelsinstitutet here in Stockholm. And I have a question concerning requirements on information dissemination within your projects. I have worked on some EU projects, and my reflection was that often there were requirements on information dissemination basically from day one before you had any results, and how this was in the programs that you've worked with.
Anyone like to pick up that question? Anders, you have any reflections?
I think in our project it was fairly easy. I mean, we had our dissemination activities was, of course, the papers we had, and we had conferences, and we had contacts with patient organizations. So I think the 2 companies we had were not extremely active at the early phases, so we didn't have any problems more than submitting our deliverables. I think if I could just comment quickly on the deliverables, it's formulating those is kind of critical, because when you write the report, you realize that it's nice to have them fairly broad so that you could deliver them if the experiments take a slightly different track. I thought very naively that one deliverable was sort of a copy of a paper reprint to be sent to Brussels, but that's not really the case. I think it's more a report, and that doesn't have to be a scientific paper or something. It's more broader than this. So I think to spend time on formulating the deliverables is really important from both, I think, academia and from the industry.
Yeah, I can just make a comment going back to the dissemination, because we actually even have a work package, because for us it's of course very important that what will happen within there comes out to the public and to professionals. So there is one taking care of communication and dissemination, and there's one of the partners which have expertise in this, in e-cancer, which leads, and also through patient organizations. And so we're well covered up to bring out the news. And of course also usually everyone needs to make makes a website. So this is also a way for you to get out what's happening, and then it's to encourage people to really bring in the news to you so you can distribute it. Because of course, if no one tells you what's happening, then how can you say something? But it's to be active and encourage it and follow the project.
So, one more question.
No, I think what I would like to see with the EU projects is that after the project is finished, that you then could have maybe a follow-up dissemination project where you could go out and really talk about the results that have been accomplished, because that's when you really have a lot to say.
So, take home message for us and everyone who speaks to the Commission. Suggestion. You raised the question of cultural differences. You said that it's important to think about, but I didn't hear any hints and advice on how to cope with it. Could you
No,
share some more experiences and how you dealt with it?
Like in many other areas, I think it's important to be aware of the problem before one gets annoyed. And I think as we heard with the colleagues from the SMEs, it is really important to understand our different working conditions. And I think if you are aware of that, then quite a lot is won. I think the problem we had was actually to find SMEs. And I think we are living in so often very different worlds, and you call, do you know a company? We need a company. And I think there is two big cultural differences, so that from the academic side, it's very difficult to find companies that really could contribute to the project, and actually the other way around, I think. So to have Vinnova in a more active role in this would be very important, I believe.
Any reflections on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if we wouldn't have these strong ties to academia from the beginning, we would probably, most probably have not ended up in this project at least, because we would have never known that it existed and that we fitted into this project.
Yeah, I think it would be important to have some sort of matchmaking events, but perhaps not only in Sweden, but some in Brussels or something like this.
We'll look into that further. Christina, you stressed the importance of a long-term view when entering these projects. So how have you worked with, have you done any specific activities inside the projects, or are you planning follow-up applications, or how do you secure that this is not just the project?
Yeah, for us, then we have once again, a work package with scientific coordination, and they are very much involved in this sustainability issue. And these are also persons which are often in Brussels and speak to different stakeholders and really engage and involve. And they are, of course, also participating in other EU projects. So the message really comes out. And also for us to prove that we have an infrastructure is easy to say, but we also have to show it. So that's why we're supposed to run projects there. So we are also, I mean, it is a long-term planning on many different levels and involving the organizations, which are doing great jobs also to get the message through on all levels.
So I see no hands raised yet, so I keep on. Maybe Björn could have a comment or question. Oh, you need this microphone in order for the people watching online to hear your question.
So hi, I'm Björn from Sweden Bio. So just to comment on the difficulties to match companies with initiatives from academia. I think we have some ongoing initiatives now, and also I think you could also turn to the grants office at universities that will also be able to help. And we have an ongoing discussion now with the EU support on Sweden Bio, how to collaborate with the different grants office in the universities in Sweden. And I also agree that it's important for the Swedish companies to get in contact with the universities in Europe, and vice versa, the SMEs in Europe to get in contact with the universities in Sweden. Perhaps that's even more important. And there are some events going on, and there is one in Brussels now in the end of May that is organized by Fit for Health, that you could actually sign up and describe your project, and also to get to match and one-to-one meetings with both companies and universities. So there are quite many initiatives in a line of the need of what you were talking about here. So please, if you have an idea, contact Sweden Bio, the different support offices that are available both at the different universities, and we will help with a good matchmaking, I think.
Per, from the EU SME office, would you like to add something in this matter?
Yes, Per Lindqvist from SP, the Rice Institute. I agree completely with Björn, and representing the other support function, we also work a lot together. And since Sweden Bio is taking care of the sort of life science focused areas, for all other areas you can turn to to me and to the RISE project. And it might also be so that we've heard today that it's not only in health that you might be able to find opportunities, whether you're in academia or an SME. So we help each other out to find opportunities where to search, and also with partners through networks, through institutes in Europe and their connections.
So we have a follow-up question here.
A follow-up to this question about the SMEs. Is there a European-wide registry for SMEs where an SME name, its website, and 5 to 10 keywords are available, similar to what academic researchers do with PubMed, where you type in an author and a few keywords? That would be a primary search for academia, and once we have those 10 companies that fit those keywords or the topic that we type in on the web, we could then turn with more targeted questions to an officer like you just presented.
I will leave that
Typical
question
academia person, I don't know whether such a thing exists.
No. I'll leave. Yeah, I just got the answer from our NCP for SME issues, Cohen also here. There is one service like that run by the Enterprise Europe Network, EEN. You can find that on links to that on the website of a Swedish sister agency to Vinnova, Tillväxtverket, Swedish growth agency. They are the agency responsible for the Enterprise Europe Network. So there you can find such a search engine, and there you can also find contact persons for inside. There are people working as contact persons for EEN around the country. Would you like to add something, Björn?
I could just comment. I think that is a very good database, but there are also a number of other databases available. The problem with these ones, they are very seldom updated, and the companies don't really write what they really want to do. And perhaps I think it's much better to get help from someone that have a more tailor-made support that could make a good matchmaking. Usually these databases, they are good to get some ideas, but usually you end up in a huge problem due to due diligence of all the hits that you will get from these databases. And usually they are very different quality, I would say. So, but it's worthwhile looking into, I agree on that.
Yeah, so then you have different roads to go down here, and remember the faces of Björn and Per. They are people that you can arrange face-to-face meeting with, and they can guide you through this. So we have 2 minutes left, and then I will just ask our speakers here today to give one hint. What is really the thing you should think about when entering an EU project now? One thing that you would like to highlight.
I think it's kind of fun. I think the driving force must be that it's nice to interact with industry. It's nice to interact with colleagues in Europe. And if you have that basic feeling, I think money and science will come along.
It's good. Fun is always fun. Please.
As a representative for industry, I would say I would like to be in control. And that's why I like these small projects where we can actually coordinate what we want to do and select really influential academic partners. But if a really good academic partner comes and approaches us, can we do this? And if it fits to what we want to do, yes, then I would like to do it. But yeah, don't say yes to anything, everything.
I totally agree with both of them, of course, and I would like to stress that the cultural differences that you should just be aware of, and then you can solve all the problems actually that come up, I think.
You had a lot of advice in your last slide. See if you can come up with a new one, or if you just like to highlight one of those.
Oh, I would simply say do it.
Thank you very much. Good final word. A round of applause to our speakers, and I ask you to stay here, and we will give you a small gift as a thank you for being here and sharing your experience today.
That's a good end note.
Thank you very much. The last presenter of the day is Karin Åse. She's the NCP for SMEs at Vinnova, and she will focus on funding opportunities for SMEs in FP7. And this is, as you may have understood during the previous session, this is not only important for the SMEs themselves, but it's encouraged and in many cases required to include SMEs in the project. So understanding the rationale and the conditions for SMEs to join this kind of projects is of course very important. Please, Karin.
Thank you very much. Ooh. Yes, my name is Karin Åse and I'm the NCP for small and medium-sized enterprises. I will just say SME from now on, and by that I mean the small and medium-sized enterprises or small companies. And just as Joachim said, it's important, even though there are not that many small companies here now, for you who are academic researchers to know what possibilities there are for small companies, and also to try to help them be part of this opportunity. So these are the things I will try to cover during my talk, if I get my papers in order. So first of all, what is an SME? We talk a lot about the small companies and SMEs, and why is there a definition? And most of all, there's so much talk about these SMEs, and the Commission is always talking about them. Let's have the SMEs part of the program. Let's give lots of money to the SMEs. And why does the Commission want to help the SMEs particularly? And if you're an SME, what are your needs? Or if you know an SME, what could be their needs? And then look at what type of programs could be suitable for the SMEs or for you together. And then, of course, who can help you? So first of all, then, the SME, the definition. You are an SME if you're less than 250 employees, if you have an annual turnover of less than 50 million euro and or an annual balance sheet of less than 43 million euro. You also have to be autonomous. And by that, it means that if you're owned by an external partner by more than 25%, then it might be that you're not an SME. So if you are, and you don't know this definition, you can just contact me or some of my colleagues, and we can go through this with you to define if you're an SME or not. So then, why is there a definition? Europe is supposed to be an internal market, no borders, and everybody's supposed to help each other. Then, of course, it's important to have one common definition. And that is to get the right type of support to the right type of companies. So why is so much talk about the small companies? Why does the Commission and EU want to help small companies? In 2010, the European Commission launched a strategy for Europe to become a smart, sustainable and inclusive economy. And by smart, they meant then, of course, to support knowledge and innovation. And there have also been several studies showing that SMEs, they actually create more new jobs than larger enterprises. And innovative SMEs, they are better equipped with handling crisis than non-innovative SMEs. And of course, you can look at Sweden now when there's big economic crisis around Europe. Sweden has been quite good to equip with this crisis, whereas other less innovative countries haven't been that successful. And other studies have shown also that SMEs who are or actually intend to become more international, they grow faster than non-international SMEs. So then, of course, if you're an SME and you want to grow and become international and be able to handle crisis in a good way, the EU programs is a good way, because there actually you have to collaborate, you have to be innovative, and you have to collaborate then with international partners. We've heard from the companies why they have participated in FP7 projects and EU projects such as Eurostars. And we have talked to quite a lot of companies, and here are the things that they list as good reasons to be part of a EU program. It's to develop new products and, of course, services or processes, and also to acquire new competences to the company. And maybe one of the most important thing is to share the risks in projects. You have lots of projects that you want to do, but you don't have, maybe you don't have the money, or you don't want to risk the money that you do have on those type of projects. It could be projects that, if they're successful, you could sell a lot of things, and you can really, it could be really good for your company. But why should you risk so much? Especially talking to your board, they might not want to risk the money that they have acquired from the VCs, for example. It's also a good way to access new markets and new customers. You can actually be in a project with your customers. So you get paid, and the customers get paid to try your products. Sort of a win-win situation, actually. And we also heard that it's a really good way for small companies to find and collaborate with world-leading researchers. It's much easier to come with an EU project and say that we're a small company, but we want to collaborate within this setting, and we want to collaborate with you. And you can have this visibility in the European community. It's also a good way to be part of developing new international standards as an SME. And there are, of course, other needs and reasons to participate as well. But as we've seen here, money is not maybe the first thing that SMEs think about or should think about when they take part of these European programs. If you're only after money, maybe you should go somewhere else, actually. This is not free lunches at the Commission. So let's look at different suitable programs. We have gone through all this, or Judith went through all these different pillars. I've just chosen to present them in sort of this table type manner instead, to make it a bit easier to see what type of things could be suitable for you. So cooperation, I usually have it sort of look at it sort of mini procurements. So the Commission says, this is what should be done, and this is the end product, and this is the impact that we want to have. If you can fit into that, you're welcome to submit an application and a project with the partners, and we can evaluate if your suggestion is the best. So it's very much a top-down type of scheme. And companies usually use this to support their own research. And then there's people, the Marie Curie, the mobility scheme, which is important for the mobility, both over the national borders and over the sector borders. And we know of the sector border here today between the industry and academia, which is can be quite difficult to overcome sometimes. It is a bottom-up scheme, and companies usually participate in this to acquire competence or to increase the competence in their companies. And then we have the capacities pillar, where I will only talk about the research for the benefit of SMEs, which has been developed to strengthen the innovation in the European companies. It's also bottom-up. You decide what type of project you should have. And it is for companies who don't have their own capability to have their own research. They can't set up, this is the project they want to be done. They can't set up a new research facility for that. So they can buy the research they need from, for example, institutes or universities or other companies. So cooperation again, it's these 10 different themes or areas. And every theme and area, they define a need that they want you to solve. And industry participation is encouraged. And during the whole lifetime of FP7, there has been changes made to make it more attractive to SMEs to participate. And all these different changes, for example, you talked about the two-stage application. It's less of a hassle to write the first part, small draft sort of a proposal, which is evaluated by evaluators, and then you're welcome to submit the second part if they find it interesting enough. The topics have also become much more broader in some areas, which makes it easier for the SMEs to find the topics, to use it in the business plan. So it's in their strategy, in their business plan, they can find a topic that maybe match. There are also some calls that require SMEs to participate, and some calls even define how big part of the budget should go to the SME. And some calls are also said to have to be led by an SME. It doesn't have to be coordinated. The administrative coordination doesn't have to be by the SME, but the project should be led by the SME. And all these things that the Commission has done to make it easier for SMEs has led to a budget share of 15% of the corporation budget has gone to the SME on a European level. We're not as good in Sweden on the SME part. We're only 10% of the budget. So there is opportunity, of course, since we're so good in participating in this 7th framework program as a nation. I think the SMEs could also take a bigger part. Yeah, and the next call will come this summer. And then going into people, Marie Curie actions. And the reason why the Commission wants to invest in this is to increase the mobility. Because if you increase the mobility, they also think then you increase the competence within the European research. And for companies, it's a really good way to be part of the FP7, but even if you don't fit thematically, because this is a bottom-up approach. So if you have a research project and you want to build your European networks, this is an excellent way to start sort of with the FP7. And there are different programs that could be good for SMEs. I will only mention one. You have the other two in appendices in the back of your handouts. This is the Industry Academia Partnerships and Pathways. It's the minimum of 2 organizations from 2 different sectors and 2 different countries. And the sectors here could be industry and academia, or industry and hospital and whatever. But the sectors, you have to cross not only the borders, but also the sectors. And participation by SMEs is encouraged. It's really great to have SMEs in this type of proposal if you want to submit. It's also a program for exchange and recruitment, and it should be balanced between the two. So not only one of the participants should have all the recruitment and all the exchange. It should be equal between these. And the exchange should be half the program. So it's really an exchange program. And you can have research within that exchange program. But it's a good way to start working on your European network. And the next call is next spring. So then capacities. So I said it's designed to strengthen European research capacity. And the part that I will talk about, research for the benefit of SMEs, is to support the SMEs with the research that they need to continue to grow and gain more competence. And I just want to show I just want to say that in this program, the focus is on the need of the SMEs. Of course, there has to be research, and the research has to be new, but it doesn't have to be really. It doesn't have to be excellent research. It has to be research that the companies really, really need. So it's based on the need of the companies. And this is a project, ProPraline, which was coordinated from Sweden. And it's actually to understand then the cracking and the bloom formation in chocolate pralines. And it sounds quite silly, but if you think about the industry, the chocolate industry, everybody loves chocolate. And of course, it's a big problem if they start to crack. So this doesn't sound like excellent research, but it's really, really important for these companies that are involved. And the quite funny thing about this also is that there were two big global companies, chocolate companies involved in this, but they only gave the ingredients and the technical know-how to this. They didn't gain any, they didn't get any compensation from the commission or from the project. But of course, in the end, they can benefit from the fact that their chocolate pralines won't crack either. So the research for the benefit of SMEs, it's a way to outsource your research. You can look at it as a customer-seller relationship, where the SME buy their new knowledge from the research institutes or from the universities or from other SMEs. And as in the other as in cooperation, there are minimum requirements of participation, at least 3 SMEs, and at least 2 research performers. And this can sometimes be a problem to find 3 SMEs that sort of have the same type of problem, but they're not sort of in the same type of area. So in this, the previous example was in the chocolate industry. There are so many different praline manufacturers. So of course, you can have different areas, but you have the same problem. Or you can have a type of ingredients that is needed that can be used in different applications. And by that, you can find this type of consortium. And then you buy it from research performers. And these research performers, they have to be independent and of course of the SMEs. You can't be an SME and sort of, oh yeah, but I'll make a new company and call it a research performer and then I buy for myself. So the SMEs, they buy research from the research performers and they in turn give the results and then intellectual property such as the patents to the SMEs. And the call will also be this summer. Yes, so you can say, as a customer, they sell by sending invoices to the SMEs, and the SMEs get sort of paid by the commission on part of the cost from this. So I just want to focus a little bit more on this type of programs. This is not widely known. It's the IPR issue, the intellectual property rights issue. Who owns the results? We heard a problem here with the IPR problem. And the default in this type of program is that the SMEs own the results because they actually buy it. So what you buy, you own. So, but of course, you can have a consortium where you have research performers that they say that, but we also want to own this. We want to have these results. And of course, in the consortium agreement, you can write whatever your consortium wants to have. So the research performers, they can of course own the results, but then they have to pay for it. And they have to pay a fair and adequate sum. So that can be, of course, a bit discussion then, what is fair and adequate. But you should know this if you go into this type of program, that you actually own it as a default. And if the others want to have it, then they have to pay for it. So we heard a lot about the time frame and how much things you have to do, and you have to travel, and you have to write, and you have to think, and you have to do all sorts of stuff to be able to submit an application to the EU programs. And for FP7, we have this planning grant called SMINT. And it is money that small companies can get to write and to plan and to submit an application to FP7. You can get a maximum of 150,000 Swedish crowns, but that has to be Vinnova financed a maximum of 60% of the total cost. And you can be reimbursed for salary, external services, or travel. And you can apply at the Vinnova webpage. If you want to apply for this, I suggest that you contact me before you apply. I am responsible for this grant, and we can discuss it a little bit further. But we want to have the application at least 6 weeks before the EU program closes, so we have time to evaluate. And I just want, because sometimes I hear, oh my God, you can actually apply for a grant, It's sort of, ugh, this is so much bureaucracy. And I just want to say that it's a very, very short application. You don't have to write that much. And if you can't fill in a SMINT application, then you shouldn't go for FP7. And that I can actually, I'm allowed to quote Henrik Nittmeier, is the CEO at Coreline, from that. So this SMINT grant is always open for you. So we have talked a lot about FP7 today, and Thorleif, he talked about something called Eurostars. And for those of you who haven't heard about Eurostars, it's a part of the Eureka program, or umbrella. And I just want to quickly go through the different pillars in Eureka. In the mid-1980s, there was a big scare in Europe because lots of research and development fled Europe and went to Asia or North America. And in order to sort of to have it in Europe still, there was this network formed called Eureka. And it consists of all the European countries and some more. So it's 39 countries in the Eureka family. And here's projects closer to market. So the rule of thumb is that within 2 years after finishing a Eureka project, you should have your product on the market. And first of all, it's the cluster projects, which is a little bit like cooperation, but it's actually managed by European companies. But they also have thematic calls. And this is within ICT and nanotechnology. And it's for developing generic technologies. And there are 2 other type of projects, which is more bottom-up. And it's the individual project and the Eurostars project. And the difference between these 2 is mainly that both of them have to have 2 partners, and we heard from Thorleif that is actually enough to be 2. In the individual projects, it has to be coordinated by an enterprise, and Eurostars project has to be coordinated by an R&D performing SME. And by R&D performing SME, you have to have at least 10% of your annual turnover within R&D, or 10% of your employees have to work with R&D. And those 2 is to develop new products, processes, or services. And I can just say quickly that this is sometimes seen as a sort of a way in to the FP7, because it's a little smaller projects, a little bit easier to handle, but it's not as much money as in FP7. You cannot apply for SMINT in the Eureka or Eurostars project, but you can apply for a travel grant. And you also get continuous support from Vinnova during the project application for Eurostars and Eureka projects. So we always talk about who can help. So we really want you to contact us if you have any questions. We have seen a picture of all of us NCPs, and here's a picture of us who work a lot with SMEs at Vinnova. It's me and my men. These are my men, and this is me. And I have the FP7 and also the planning grant. And here today is Gunnar Sandberg up there. So you can talk to him both about IMI, Innovative Medicines Initiative, and if you have Eurostars or Eureka projects, more questions about that. And I should say that we are free of charge. You have already paid for us via the taxation bill, so you can just call us. And it can be difficult sometimes to get through to the telephone. I've heard that complaint several times, but you can always email us, and we promise to answer the email at least and call you back. So we also heard from Joachim that we have 2 support offices. Since we want the SMEs to participate in the EU programs, we have decided to have not only us NCPs and me as an NCP for SMEs, but also support offices that are also free of charge. And it's the Sweden Bio Support Office, Björn, that talked previously, and you can just contact him if you're in the life science sector. And Per Lindqvist represents the RISE EU SME support office. There are many more people in the EU SME part, so you can talk to different people. And if you haven't talked to them during the lunch, you should actually try to talk to them now, because they know a lot of things and they have a lot of experience, and also can help with finding partners. So I just want to conclude with this slide. FP7 and Eureka and Eurostars is a great opportunity for SMEs. It is a door opener to Europe. And there are several participations by SMEs, Swedish SMEs, and they've actually have 76 million euro to the Swedish SMEs during the FP7. It's quite a lot of money, even though I don't want to say that money is the most important thing. Of course, without money, you shouldn't participate. But it is it is a great opportunity, and it is a lot of money in these projects. But apart from that, it is also a great opportunity to extend your network, and also to take the chance to work with leading scientists, and to find new customers and new markets, and have this risk sharing in your projects. Yes, I think that's it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, more information, I should say, also at Vinnova.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say something about that. Any questions for Colin before we break up for coffee? Please, Tulev.
You have to have the mic, otherwise the...
You were talking about this new initiative about research to the benefit of SMEs.
It's not a new, but it's not that much known, I think.
Yeah, I'm quite interested, because I might like to raise my ambition a little bit from Eurostars level to the next level. And the question is, if I can find then a couple of more SMEs and so on, could I also then apply for this grant you said you had from SMINT?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you want to have a consortium within Marie Curie, you can also apply for SMINT.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Further questions? No, then we'll leave the questions for the networking after here. I'd just like to say a few words before we end today's event. First of all, I'd just like to stress that all the information about calls and opening of calls and closing of calls that we have mentioned here today is based on the best knowledge that we have today. The final versions and the final decisions on all these details will be available on the European websites, but also links on the Swedish website, so that you all know that we are a bit we're in a formative phase now, where all these details are being sorted out. And I will also like to say that Vinnova, it has been mentioned before, but I will just say it again, that Vinnova will arrange a couple of designated information days or information seminars for each of the thematic teams of the corporations during the spring. The first one will be this spring, but there will be a lot of them during the autumn, in the end of August and the beginning of September, that you can have more specific discussions on topics and related matters. And I finally, I would also like to thank everyone who have been here today listening to us, all the speakers, and all the viewers that have been following this event online. And with that, I will like to invite you all for coffee in the area where we all registered this morning. So thank you very much.